All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Samurai Brothers. Things got a little busy for me, so I had to ask Matthew to had to take a break because of all of my coaching and stuff and sumo stuff going on. But we're back, Matthew, and I checked our upload history. We're on episode 27, it looks like.
Yep, episode 27.
Episode 27. So, Matthew, we kind of had to really do some brainstorming about what we were going to discuss before our episode today, and we got quite a jam-packed episode to do. So we're going to get into quite a few things regarding that. Obviously, the first thing we want to do that we kind of had to put off for a while was the World Championships finally happened for United World Wrestling. So we'll see how the American team did, and also we'll look at how the Japanese team did as well, since we, are connected to both countries, right, Matthew?
Yep.
And so we'll also kind of preview the upcoming UFC pay-per-view, and also we'll get into there's 2 chapters of One Piece that came out while we were on break. So chapters 1062 and 1063. And Matthew, I saw some very interesting information reveals on quite a few things. So kind of some weird stuff, honestly, but we'll
some weird stuff, but also some revealing stuff.
Right. That there's a legend in the world of pro wrestling and MMA that has left us, so we'll discuss his legacy. And then Matthew, I saw the trailer. I don't know if you've seen it yet, for a certain movie that's going to be coming out, and I'll be wanting to kind of leave the episode on that note. So I think it'll be interesting to see the build-up for this movie that'll be coming out.
You have me wondering which one, because there's so many coming out.
Well, I imagine you probably I imagine you've probably been watching a lot of trailers, right?
Yeah, I've been watching a lot of trailers.
All right. Well, Matthew, let's get into this. The United World Wrestling Tournament. The championships took place on September 10th to September 18th. Obviously, the U.S. had a full team going to that, and a lot of people were returning, and then a lot of new people in the game, too, on this team. Obviously, for us,
we still didn't figure out how exactly teams are able to qualify their members.
Right, because if you take a full team, that's 30 people. 10
and
each for
just looking at it, Turkey, Ukraine, US, India, all took full teams. China almost took a full team. They took 29. So there's got to be some kind of criteria that we still...
Well, either criteria...
Kazakhstan as well.
Right.
Took full 20. And I know that Mongolia took
Didn't they take
full freestyle teams?
Right. They
don't specialize in what's it called? Greco for some reason.
So I'm wondering
which I'm kind of surprised, because the reason why they do so well in sumo is because
of Mongolian sumo.
Yeah, Mongolian wrestling is so much more similar to sumo, which is along the lines of Greco. So you'd think they would do better, but they don't. They didn't take anyone in Greco. You'd expect that they'd be able to take one person.
I do want to point something out. They do, unlike sumo. I know that I've actually watched some Mongolian sumo matches, and they do like to put some emphasis on leg grabs.
So maybe
So it is similar to wrestling in a way. What's unique about Mongolian sumo is that it's kind of a combination of sumo and wrestling in certain ways.
Sumo and more
and
international wrestling, you mean?
Right, freestyle wrestling, where they're trying to go for leg grabs.
Oh, I noticed that this year a lot more African countries than just the 3 last year came.
Oh, well, that's good. Well, of course, obviously, probably the reason because of that was may have had
maybe the Olympics.
Maybe the Olympics, but perhaps the other thing was maybe COVID related. Like travel restrictions, visa issues. As I remember how, and you've seen, I know that you've seen this in like UFC where people, they're trying to go to another country to go do a fight, and then they have visa issues, and then they can't enter the country, and then someone else has to step in to fight, whoever their opponent was.
Well, that's why during COVID, you had either the fights were taking place in at the not the Olympic Training Center, the UFC Apex in Las Vegas, or they were taking place in Dubai, where they developed the because the resort there wasn't being used anyways, and UAE owns a stake in UFC, so it was in their interest to have it succeed. So that's why they developed the fight hub there, which they eponymously named Fight Island. So it was one of those things where if you couldn't get into the US, typically you were able to get into the UAE.
So anyway, so let's get right into this then, because looks like the U.S., at least from the articles that you and I were reading, U.S. had a pretty good outing with some, and I was also looking at the USA Wrestling article, and there were some records set by the 2022 team as well. So I'm just kind of, just for the sake of time, I won't read, who placed what. But I would like to highlight, obviously the U.S. and the Japanese wrestlers for kind of each of the weights. So just to kind of start it off. So Gilman was ranked number 1, the last time we actually looked at the rankings for 57 freestyle, and he ended up taking second. He lost to Abakarov from Albania, I think. Yeah, from Albania.
Never thought Albania would be good at wrestling.
Well, they're probably from
one of 2 Albanians to go, and
right.
One of them won the medal.
Right, so that's pretty something. And then you had Hasegawa at 57 kilos. It looks like the points he scored in the bracket got him into 8th place. So, it's kind of like, okay. I think, though, obviously, now, this is not a qualifying year, so this does nothing for the weight class, but what it does is it gives Gilman points as far as the rankings are concerned. So, that's at least something for him. And then
doesn't it give him qualifying for next year?
No, not really. Well, because next year is not
the World Championships.
Well, no. What it does is it gives him the what do you call that? The Final X ticket.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. He gets that slot to Final X in his case. So at 61 kilos, Rei Higuchi was the one who took the world championships. And this guy, I think he was the one who took the gold medal at 2016, I think.
So silver.
Oh, was it silver? Okay.
Yeah, I'm looking at it. It was the silver.
And then Gross took 5th. He did get to the bronze medal match, but he ended up taking 5th. Now, Matthew, I was, the unique thing about do you know about Gross's history? Seth
Was
Gross?
he the guy that came out of nowhere?
He was at one of the Big Ten schools, and then he kind of messed up in life. He got himself arrested, and I think it was is he a Big Ten or Big 12? Anyway, he got himself kicked off the team. So he was in one of the big conferences.
I remember this guy. He was in Iowa, right?
Yeah, I think it was Iowa.
Yeah, and Iowa has this high standard, so he screwed up, and Brand said, "You're gone."
Right.
And I think it was South Dakota State that was going to take him.
Yes, South Dakota State took him.
And he ended up facing his teammate in the NCAA finals.
Right, and so he became the first national champion for South Dakota State. So that was kind of that was the comeback story. So I'm glad that you and I remember that, because we were like, this guy, he seemed to come out of nowhere, but so that was something.
Well, that was several years ago, as I recall.
Right. Yeah, it was.
So but then so that's how he got his qualification, was because he was an automatic. And wait a minute, that was several years ago. Yeah, it's the qualification has to be that year in order to get into the...
Right. He was already he's been like the top athlete in the weight class. But I think I don't remember if I'd have to go back and look at it. But yeah, he's been the top wrestler in the weight class for a couple of years now, if I recall. So that would be for 61 free.
The guy that came out of nowhere, we're thinking about, he's slightly higher up.
He's slightly higher up in rank.
We remember Gilman because of that comeback story, not because of he came out of nowhere. Gross. I think about Gross because of the comeback story. So as I recall, that was like early Brand's days where he won those first few championships, and Kale either was still at Iowa State or had just gone to Penn State.
Mm-hmm.
Either way, he was not in his prime coaching yet.
Right.
So kind of proto Coach Kale.
Yeah. So 65 free, Yanni took second.
I forgot. Did we say he has one more year of eligibility due to COVID?
Yeah, I thought he had 2 years of eligibility, but you told me that I think it was 2021 that the Ivy League did not participate.
Right. Yeah.
So he ended up losing that extra year. So he's still a 3-time NCAA champion, so he still has 1 more year to go, and he intends on coming back to try and get that 4th title.
Yeah, so what would have happened if the Ivy League had participated in 2021, he would have had the chance to be a 4-time champion, but because the Ivy League did not participate, he unfortunately basically lost that opportunity.
He lost that opportunity.
I was gonna say to tie. What was the 6-time guy's name?
Yeah, I'd have to.
I realized. Oh wait, no, he won it 6 times.
He won it 6 times, and Carlton Hasselrig. But
I've always thought that's like a very tough name, Carlton Hasselrig.
But no, but here's the thing. There's been plenty of... Carlton Hasselrig was a 6-time NCAA champion combined.
Across D2 and D1.
Right, across D2 and D1. Now, there have been, if shout out to Wrestle Report, he keeps track on this, but there have been 4-time NAIA D3 and D2 champions. So, technically Hasselrig didn't do that, but hey, to win. But in the case of Hasselrig, he had to go out and win 2 tournaments like a week or 2 apart. That's not, a national championship. That's not an easy thing.
The fact of the matter is, he earned those 6 championships.
Right, exactly. You don't.
I would hope that all those guys who were like embarrassed at being shown up at the D1 level would be gone by now. So let's make it more challenging.
Yeah, let's bring that back.
Let's bring the D2 and D3.
Yeah, bring the D2 and D3 champions back in. Let Iowa and Penn State really fight tooth and nail for that. I'd love to see that happen.
And if another 2-time same year champion happens, then so be it. Let's make it exciting.
So Yanni ended up taking second, and then the Japanese wrestler was Kaiki Yamaguchi, and his ranking in the bracket got him to 10th place. So it seems like he, compared to the rest of the people, so he might have lost the champion, gotten in the repage. In fact, because he's got points, he got into the repage. So that's
as much as we want just pure double elimination, at least at the United World Championships, that they at least have a repage, so it's a version of double elimination, but it's not pure double elimination. It's like what they do at 5 counties. Because 5 counties, they have who knows how many schools there, so they cannot do a pure double elimination championship. So they do a repage to, essentially eliminate some people. That's what happened with me my junior year. Because I didn't wrestle my senior year because I was injured at the time. But my sophomore year, I went in. The guy that I lost to got in the repage, and I wrestled the second time, but I didn't make it to the second day. My junior year, the guy who beat me lost, so I went 1-1 in the tournament.
I'll have to go back in because I remember that I officiate. Of course, if you're an official, you're not paying attention to anything about how the tournament's being run. You're just there to officiate. So,
well, it's possible that back that when I still don't know why the Temecula Valley coaches decided to create the rival tournament, but it's possible that when that tournament happened, it just they drew enough people from 5 counties that a repage was pointless, so they probably just started doing pure double elimination.
This is just rumor. My understanding is there was like a disagreement or something between the Temecula coach and the 5 counties coach, or they just didn't like how it was being run. Something along those lines. That's why they did that.
You mean the Fountain Valley coach?
Yeah, the Fountain Valley coach. So
well, we've kind of skirted Orange County coaching politics, but maybe that we're not going to go in depth. We're not going to, because
people will hold grudges.
There's no point in bringing out the skeletons in the closet. But we're just going to say that there's some politics in Orange County high school wrestling, and maybe that played into it.
Yeah, most certainly.
That's what we'll say, and then we'll end it there because we still want to maintain good relationships with people. So
here's where it gets interesting. So 70 kilos. So here you had a Japan US face-off in the finals. So Taishi Narikuni, who, I haven't been following much Japanese wrestling lately, so first time I'm hearing about this guy. So he's a little bit probably on the younger side, probably graduated from college within the last 3-4 years, I would imagine.
He is 24 years old.
Okay, yeah, see. So he takes out Rutherford. So that means that at this point, Japan's got 2 golds, and the U.S. has 3 silvers in the
Oh, wow, get this. He comes from a line of his mother was a 4-time medalist in the World Championships, won gold in 90 and 91.
What's her
And
name?
he won the Asian Cadet Games in 2014.
Wow. What's her name?
Akiko Ijiyama. No, Ijima. That might be Ijima.
Yeah, that would. Well, yeah. I don't know for certain, but okay. Yeah. So he's got a pedigree. Was his dad a wrestler?
It doesn't say. That doesn't mean he wasn't.
Yeah. Okay.
It's just he wasn't, well known.
Yeah. Right. Okay. So that's interesting. So then if we go to 74, Dake takes the title. So, that's to be expected. So Takatani Daiichi was the wrestler from Japan, and he took 10th. So he was in the repage. Now, I remember Takatani, I think, started coming up sometime after I had graduated from Nichifuji. So I know that he was a high school champion. And I think he might have even won the intercollegiate title too in Japan. So, and he's been to the Olympics once or twice already. So, definitely. So, but Dake is up on the podium again. So, he's definitely going to have that slot at the Final X, right?
We've got a bunch of guys who are just like performing at like peak performance right now, and
yeah, I like how you see that whenever I'm watching YouTube videos, and I see a lot of I see the Flow Wrestling commercial, and they do the interviews with Dake and Burroughs, and Dake is like, it's really hard for me to put on the brakes, he says that sort of thing. So and speaking of Burroughs, so there he is, first place on the 79 kilo men's. And then Takahashi Yudai from Japan takes 7th. But so this is where it gets significant, Matthew. I think you and I, we're both sharing this and stuff. And so this is the 7th world title for Burroughs. Which includes his gold medal at the Olympics. And that is the record for U.S. men's gold.
Yeah, as I recall, I think the guy who held that before him is John Smith.
Yeah, which is...
So he just eclipsed John Smith.
Yeah. So that's, pretty significant. And now he's all on there by himself. And so I'm hoping, I'm really hoping to get my my library, my database started for, records and stuff of wrestlers. So definitely that's one of the first things I want to get on there. So, yep. And then, so then if we go to 86 kilos, so at 86 kilos, David Taylor. So there's the third gold medal for the team in freestyle. So he takes that. Do we see the Japanese wrestler Shota Shirai? His points earned him 15th place. So now
he had to beat Hassan again.
Oh yeah. Man, you talk about the rivalries, man. I mean, it's usually either the U.S. against Iran or against Russia. Yeah. Pretty interesting
Speaking of which, maybe now would be the time to mention the fact that, Russia was absent.
Yeah.
It was Russia, and was it Bulgaria or No, oh no. I'm looking at Bulgarian guy. Never mind. It was Russia and
It was Belarus that.
Belarus.
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, the
So
Bulgarian wrestler.
So tentatively, the World Championships are going to be next year. In Russia.
Oh, in Russia.
Wow. Tentatively.
Not to get political, but
they were supposed to be in Russia this year, and I think they're in Serbia.
Yeah, it was Belgrade, Serbia.
Yeah. So what happened was it was supposed to be in Serbia next year, but they UWW, because of the ongoing issue, switched the
probably because they want to see if this thing will be over by the time of which makes me kind of wonder if it's not over. Are they gonna have whoever's supposed to host 2024 just have them do that? Or are they gonna keep
what happened last year a normal thing where they'll have separate world championships from the Olympics? Because I didn't think it was.
Yes, they do. They will. Yeah, this world championships will be separate from the Olympics. In fact, the world championships are considered qualifiers for the Olympics. In
the same year?
Yes, in the same year. If you win the world championships.
Yeah, from the previous year. If you win the world championships from, for example, the next one, if you win the world championships in 2023, you're qualified for 2024.
Oh, maybe they do the world championships. You know what? I think they did the world championships after the Olympics.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah, they did.
But I'm assuming that's because they were postponed.
Probably, because I know it got postponed because of the whole, well, obviously,
obvious
reasons. Why. We know why.
Obvious reasons.
Yeah. Let me see here. So let's kind of speed through this a bit. So 92 kilos. So Jaden Cox finished second. So that's the fourth silver medal, I think, for the, fourth silver medal, I think. So we're only on 8 weight classes, and we have 3 golds and 4 silvers for the men's U.S. wrestling.
Yeah, only 1 weight class did not take a medal, and
he was in the medal match. So you think about that. The Japanese wrestler Sosuke Takatani, he took 10th. Okay. So now if we go to 97 kilos. So for 97 kilos, Matthew, you had Snyder taking the championship. And really the only reason why, obviously Abdulajev wasn't there. And I it's kind of funny because I saw this, someone had reposted a tweet because Abdulajev had tweeted out to Kyle saying he wants another match, and Kyle was tweeted him back and says, yeah, let's make it happen. Unfortunate it couldn't happen here, so Kyle Snyder gets another world championship, obviously.
I think Kyle Snyder was very aware of the fact that he's basically a pretender to the throne right now.
Right now,
and I hate to say that, but it's true. The only reason why,
because I think the last 2 or 3 matches, it's been Abdulajev who won it, right?
Yeah.
And then Takashi Ishiguro took 14th for men's wrestling. So, I mean, they're getting into the repage. I think I only saw one Japanese wrestler not get into the repage. And then Zilmer took 7th. So he didn't even make the medal match. And then on the flip side with Taiki Yamamoto, took 23rd out of 24 competitors for heavyweight. So, so what we basically were looking at, men's freestyle, Matthew, we were looking at four gold medals and 4 silver medals for a combined 8. And so let's now look at the team rankings of the freestyle.
I'm sorry. How did the I blanked for a little bit. How did the Japanese and American do in the heavyweight?
So the heavyweight U.S. wrestler took 10th. Or no, sorry, he took 7th, and then the Japanese wrestler took 23rd. So
that's another thing I noticed is Japan almost took a full team at 29.
So here's where it got interesting. So the for freestyle team rankings, United States took first, and they pretty much blew that out of the water. I think what was key for them, Matthew, when I'm looking at the
the lack of India, or
what?
No, a lack of Russia.
Well, a lack of Russia was one thing, but here's how they won, because Iran took 2nd in the team rankings, and there was 4 times where they had direct face-offs against each other, and they ended up splitting it 2-2. So that was one thing. And then you got Japan that took third place, and they beat Mongolia by 2 points. So Japan takes the 3rd place. I don't know if they hand out a trophy or anything like that, but they took 3rd place, which is considerably a pretty good finish for Japan.
I'm going to be perfectly honest. If I was someone who wanted to go out and try to start some kind of coaching at any type of in any type of country and try to develop freestyle or try to develop wrestling in any type of country, one of 2 options would be either to go to Mongolia and try to teach Greco, or to go to Jamaica and try to teach wrestling at all.
Right.
Or maybe even Guam. Because Guam, because of their status as a territory, they have their own athletics, and they can participate with that in the Oceania events, but they don't have any kind of wrestling.
Right.
So, Guam would make the most sense, because I'd just go there and be like, hey, I'd go to the Guam IOC and be like, hey, let's start some wrestling.
Right. Yeah, definitely.
Because they have wrestling. They compete in Far East.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Guam competes in the Far East.
Yeah. Guam, yeah. Of course.
So they have wrestling there. It's just
Right.
But it's just hypotheticals for me.
Okay, so now this thing wants to be a bum. Because it's not,
Well, it's pretty simple. I mean, no Americans placed in Greco. That's bizarre. Because we had some medalists from...
Right.
We had some medalists from last year.
Yeah, I mean, Yu Shiotani, he got a bronze medal. Oh, but Nori was in the bronze medal match at 55 kilos. So he was close. I'm kind of wondering if he went against Shiotani or if he went against the Uzbeki wrestler. That'd be kind of interesting to see. And then if we go to, and then again, there was Fumita Kenichiro. I think he took a medal at one of the Olympics, one of the past Olympics. And then Ildar Hafizov took 10th, so he was in.
It says he won a gold medal at the in 2017 in Paris.
Okay.
Oh, he did win silver at the Olympics.
See, the 63 kilo Greco was not a very good showing for either team. Ryuto Ikeda took 20th and Sam Jones took 23rd. So not a very good outing. They both lost their matches. Yeah, Greco does not appear to be continues to not be a strong point for the U.S.
What happened to that? What happened to that? What was it, 2003 or 2017 that won the championship?
Mm-hmm.
What happened to that team? It's like what happened? It's like what happened? Like I know that international wrestling got confusing, but did it really get so bad that we had just so much of a loss of interest in the U.S. that
For Greco?
Yeah. Like we used to be good at it.
Yeah. I would say so.
One of the underdog stories of the Olympics of Olympic wrestling was, Rulon Gardner going against
taking out Karelin,
and then having a comeback story after he almost died.
Yeah.
And then had a car accident. No, motorcycle accident.
Yeah, because what weight classes? 67. I mean, Sancho got into the Repage. Endo also got into the Repage, but, again.
Do we really need to talk about this anymore? It's just so depressing.
All right, on to women's.
Yeah, women. It's like women's happy stuff. At least we see Americans in At least we see Americans in the medals.
Okay, so we're starting off with 50 kilos. Yui Sasaki. I mean, she is a monster. I mean, this girl is, you just cannot get around her. I mean, I've seen her. She's just slick. She knows her stuff. So, I mean, Sarah Ann Hildebrandt
ran through everyone last year without a single point. Teched everybody.
Yeah, I mean, just again, Sasaki is something else. Hildebrandt did take the bronze medal, so good for her. And then if we're going to, so here we go, Math. Make sure you're keeping track of the medal count here. 1 gold for Japan, 1 bronze for the U.S. But so here's where it gets interesting. 53 kilos. Dominique Parrish did take the gold medal, and I'm wondering if this is where. See, I think this is where we have our missing party for Japan, because there was no Japanese wrestler in this weight class,
which is bizarre.
Yeah. So my guess is
this is the category where where Japan excels at.
Yeah, this is one of the winningest categories for Japan. My guess is the person who was selected got hurt, and they did not have time to name a replacement. I mean, that's the only plausible.
Do they name alternates in Japan? You'd think so.
Yeah, you would think so. I mean, they've got alternates, for the U.S. team.
You're allowed to take up to 2 alternate. I've looked at the rules. You're allowed to take up to 2 alternates per weight class.
Right. So I don't know what happened.
It's just so bizarre that they didn't take any alternates.
So Mukaida Mayu gets she got the gold at 55 kilos. Jakara Winchester got into the bronze medal match, but she did not win, unfortunately. So
interesting. A Canadian medal in that though.
Carla Gonzalez. She seems familiar. I'm wondering. I would think she's wrestled in the U.S.
Well, it's possible. I mean, there's more opportunities to wrestle in college in the U.S. than there are in Canada.
Right. I mean, the name just sounds so familiar. That's the thing.
It's possible that she wrestled in college in the U.S. and then she went back to Canada.
Okay, so here's the big one at 57 kilos. Sakurai Tsugumi beats Helen Maroulis. So Maroulis back on the podium, but just not able to unseat the Japanese.
Well, she made it onto the podium last year.
Yes. So that's where she's standing on that. And then if we're moving up to 59 kilos, let's see what we got here. So this is an interesting one. Motoki Sakura took third. And then for our Abigail Nettie, and I think she was the one who, I think she upset the Final X opponent. Because this was her first outing as a world team member, as far as I recall from the Final X results. But she got into the repage, so she took 10th place. So that's pretty reasonably good. So if we're moving up to 62 kilos, what do we got? So Ozaki Nonoka takes the gold. And then Kayla Miracle, she was the one, I think, she had struggles, and she came back, if I recall. But she took second. So, another good outing, at least for the women. So that's another medal to add to the tally. So then if we're getting into 65 kilos, we got another Morikawa Miwa takes gold. She beat Jia Long from China. And then Mallory Velty did get a bronze medal. So, we're keeping pace as far as the medal counts are concerned. So, and then 68 kilos. Our dear Tamira Menza stock fends off Ami Ishii to take the gold medal. So that's now her third gold medal, I believe. Right, Matthew?
Yep.
So good for her in keeping pace with that. And then I think, where was it that, yes, the big one right here. Amit Elor takes the gold at 72 kilos. And we're going to have a little bit to discuss about that once we get to the stats page from the USA Wrestling article. Masako Furuichi takes the bronze medal. And then the last weight class for the women's, which is 76 kilos. And that is going to be, so Yuka Kagami from Japan did take a bronze medal. And our American wrestler was Diamond Guilford, who did not get into the repage. And she replaced Adeline Gray, if I remember correctly, who had twins. So, but apparently she's going to try and make her way back into the game. So hopefully...
Really? Gray had twins?
Yes, she had twins.
Oh, boy. Identical or fraternal?
I did not look at it. All I know is that I saw that she had twins. So, but she, she's out and about. So anyway,
well, if she's going for 76, I mean, she can't be like, it can't be that impossible to get to at minimum make way. It's just a matter of if she can work off the mat rust.
Yes. So here's what we had, Matthew. So Japan and the U.S. finished 1-2 for the women's freestyle rankings. And there were 3 direct face-offs between the two teams, with Japan taking 2. And then we had one Menza stock taking the sole medal in the face-off, the gold medal. So that concludes that. And so pretty we had some pretty good outings. You know, what was that? That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 medals. 3 of them gold for the U.S. women's. The Japanese, I mean, 5 gold medals. So that's 5 out of 10. That's a pretty good number for them. But then even that, they did have 1 silver and 3 bronze. So aside from the one weight class where they didn't have anyone, they medaled in all. At least if I'm reading this right, they medaled in all of the weight classes. So you want to talk about a superior team? It's the Japanese women. Superior beyond a doubt there.
Oh yeah, they've always been consistent in terms of.
Oh yes, very consistent.
Well, and it's like we talk about where Japan has always focused on technique. They do a little bit of strength and conditioning, but they've always focused on technique. With the women, that's your bread and butter. And they've always been able to do that. So they've always excelled because again, it's the reality is in women's athletics, it's all about technique. So that's where they focus on. They've always excelled at that.
Right. So USA Wrestling has they do have an article which talks about there were apparently a lot of records that were either set or extended by the U.S. World Team. So let's kind of get these. So
does that include no medals in Greco?
Well, yeah,
I'm gonna bash on that all the time.
That's kind of not in there, but okay. So 4 U.S. men took home gold in the freestyle, and that ties the record for most freestyle world championships. So the last time they did that was in 2017. So then they captured the world team title, and first time since 2017 that they did that. So apparently, I guess this extends the record. Which
well, as I recall, a bunch of these guys are from that team, right?
Yeah.
Dave Burrows, Taylor, Snyder.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then individual most combined world and Olympic gold medals for a U.S. team member, which is, all I can see is gold, Jordan Burroughs. He passes John Smith and Adeline Gray on that. So then you go to the actual world championships. So you take out that Olympic medal, Burroughs actually extends his record, with 6 world championships. And the second place wrestlers are John Smith and Kyle Dake at 4. So if Kyle Dake wins another championship next year, then he will be in sole second place past John Smith. So we all know the significance of John Smith and the obvious accomplishments and contributions he's made to the sport. So then most men's freestyle world finalists. So there were 8 freestyle wrestlers got into the finals for the men. So which was Dake, Burroughs, Taylor, Snyder, Gilman, Giacomalis, Rutherford, and Cox. And so that was a record breaker because you had 6 in the finals in 1991. So, and at that time they went 3-3 in the finals. So, most gold medals by a U.S. World Team. So this was a record breaker, and that was obviously the medals were won by Dake, Burroughs, Taylor, Snyder, Parrish, Stock, and Elor. And before that, it was 5 gold medals combined. And that was done, previous years were 95, 2019, and 2021. So now Amit Allure is the youngest U.S. senior world champion. So there is somebody younger than her. And Matthew, I'm willing to bet the farm that it is probably someone from Japan. So anyway, but Amit Allure.
So something I was reading up on. It says that one of Allure's wrestling partners is a certain teammate of mine.
Maroulis?
Yeah.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me. So Snyder won the world title at 19 years old, but now Amit Allure has done it at 18. So let's see here.
It's a lot easier. It's like what's his name? Henry Cejudo was one of those exceptions in that he just went straight to international wrestling as a from high school. That doesn't normally happen in U.S. men's wrestling. You spend some time wrestling in college. Women, it's a completely different story. You could still do that, partially because of the fact that, as we know, it's still a growing sport. There's just not the structure to go into women's into college wrestling and do some time there to develop your skills before you go straight into world wrestling. It's not there, so it sometimes just makes more sense to go straight in there.
Well, and the other thing also is, I think women's college, NCAA's, WCWA, they're all doing it freestyle too. So that's another thing.
That transition's easier.
Right, the transition's a lot easier. So here's an interesting stat for you, Matt. This is the first time that the U.S. has won the overall world championship medal count across all styles. So they had 15. Japan came next with 12. And then Iran had 10.
Well, they had some obvious help because it's like, again, I really hate to keep pointing this up, but no Russia.
Right. No Russian.
Though I'm still surprised that Ukraine was able to field any kind of a team.
I know,
because apparently a full team.
Because they had sent a team to the World Games, which was in Atlanta. Because there was a Ukrainian sumo team there.
Yeah, but Ukraine. And that was earlier in the year.
Right, that was earlier this year. I
was kind of surprised because of the fact that there was a time when basically all men were called to the front lines, and that included some MMA fighters. That include the Russian, the Ukrainian boxers.
Right.
It included almost everybody.
Right.
So I don't know if because they're taking back territory, the fact that Russia's not on the doorstep of Kiev anymore. It's like maybe that's the reason why. Possibly.
So anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and conclude that, Matthew, because that was a good, pretty good showing. I mean, what do you think about us going forward? What do you think that is in store for the team? I think obviously we're gonna see the big names sticking around because they want to. A lot of these people are gonna be gunning for the Olympics again in Paris, which is in now it's in less than 2 years now.
Well, it's we're clearly doing well. Obviously there'll be more of a challenge hopefully next year when, the Russians aren't banned.
Yeah.
But, hopefully things will be resolved by then. But I've seen some projections saying that once winter sets in, it's going to slow down. So we'll see, but it's we'll just see how things progress from here. Obviously, we're doing very well internationally. The obvious, we need to work on our Greco, because no Russians, and no
Mongolians.
No. The was it Bulgaria that was?
Oh, Belarus.
No Belarus, no Russians, and 0 medals. That's pathetic. Quite frankly, that's pathetic. We should not be at this level. So it's like we've got 2 more years. We need to improve.
Yep, definitely. All right. Well, that concludes our review of the U.S. team's performance at the World Championships in Serbia. So, Matthew, let's move on. We've got a pay-per-view coming up this Saturday. So, do you want to run us through, what are we looking for in terms of matches?
Okay, so UFC 280 Oliveira versus Makhachev. Taking place, technically, it is taking place October 22nd. Taking place October 22nd at the Etihad Arena in Abu Dhabi, which actually was being built during the pandemic. It was just one of those pre-planned things. And so what's gonna happen there is fighting for the vacant lightweight title, Charles Oliveira, who was the champion, but had it's like, I thought that by moving up to featherweight, he would have gotten his weight issues taken care of, but he was stripped of the title because he missed weight at lightweight. So he's fighting to get his title back against up-and-comer Islam Makhachev, who is a teammate of the retired Khabib Nurmagomedov. And we know how hardcore those guys are.
Yeah, they're pretty hardcore.
Yeah. He has 1 loss, and it was at it was 7 years ago, his second fight in the UFC.
So he hasn't lost since.
Yeah, and the guy he lost, Drew Adriano Martins, isn't even in the UFC anymore.
I mean, that's
and
pretty
hasn't gotten over a year. So
that's pretty something, though, to go 7 years without losing.
Well, Khabib went
undefeated.
Yeah, completely undefeated. So let's see.
That's a record that's never gonna get touched.
Yeah, that's just 20.
Was it 29 and
0? I think it's 29 and 0. Okay, so then at bantamweight we have Aljamain Sterling just coming off of his title defense against Petr Yan, which he only got because Petr Yan decided to kick him with both knees on the ground. This was nowhere near the borderline where one knee was on the ground. Both knees were on the ground. That is still, regardless of what American rule set you're using, that is a grounded opponent. And he was winning too. He was cruising in. And then Aljo decides, I'm going to earn this belt. So he completely destroys Petr Yan in the title defense. And to me, he actually won the title there. Like, if there was any doubt about whether he was the champion, he is now the champion.
Mm.
And he's going against a certain TJ Dillashaw.
A certain TJ Dillashaw. Yep. That's right. So Dillashaw still around, I see. Yep.
Yeah, and he after his suspension, he was able to earn his way back to this.
Yep.
And then, speaking of Petr Yan, he is facing off Sugar Sean O'Malley, one of the a product of the Dana White Contender Series.
So, do you think they put Petr Yan on this card on purpose?
Possibly.
Given what you just explained to me, the history of his, fighting for the title.
Possibly. So, anyways, yeah, he's going against the up-and-comer Sugar Sean O'Malley, who this is his most challenging fight to date. Sean O'Malley, one loss to Marlon Vera. And right, yeah, he if Andrei Sukumoth had actually been a little bit more savvy, then he would have won that fight, but instead Sean O'Malley won it on one leg, and then was out for 2 years because of what that did to his leg. So, but he hasn't really gotten any big name wins. I mean, Tyrion Ware, Andrei Sukumoth, Jose Quinones, Eddie Wineland, Thomas Almeida. Accidentally, I poked Pedro Munoz. This is his most challenging fight to date. This is gonna say whether he's ready for the big time or not. Then we've got Iranian American Benil Dariush going up against Matsayev Gemrock, and Dariush, despite being a veteran, he's kind of gone on a tear lately. Yeah, he's undefeated since 2018, and he's beat some big names. Ferguson.
Oh.
Jakar Close, Frank Camacho, Drew Dober, Thiago Moises. So he's been beating some. These aren't no namers.
All right, and then our
His
opener.
first fight in over a year. No, the opener is Caitlin Chu Kayin, who is a former title contender, versus Menon Fiorot, who is French.
All right. So it looks like, Caitlin is the number one ranked. So
I'd say Menon, if she wins this, has earned the next title shot against Bullet Valentina.
Okay. Well, that'll be interesting.
And those are really the names of note.
Okay.
I could go over everyone else on the fight card, but those are the real names of note.
Okay.
Something else to point out is the fact that so this is what she said in interviews, but Tatiana Suarez, who before her major injury was a contender at strawweight, which is 115. She says she wants to move up to flyweight because she apparently the weight drain was so much that she was going into all of her fights tired. And I'm just like, how in the world were you able to go into all of your fights tired and destroy all of those opponents? And I'm just like, man, if that's her tired, I can't wait to see her at flyweight where she's like not tired. I'd love to see that fight against Bullet Valentina.
All right.
Yeah, that's UFC 280. I believe it's going to be during the what's it called? It's gonna I believe they're gonna be it's because they're doing it according to Abu Dhabi time. It's gonna be during the afternoon. Like, actually, I think it starts at 11.
Oh.
Pacific time.
All right. Well.
So yeah, that's the preview of UFC 280.
All right. Good to go. Well, Matthew, I mean, what would be your predictions for the title fights?
I think Makayev is going. If I had to place money on it, I'd say I think Makayev is gonna take this one.
Mm-hmm.
Oliveira is pretty tough as nails. He's coming back from some stuff, but well, first of all, he needs to come in on weight, which Makayev. I don't think Makayev has had that issue. Let me double check.
So what happens if Oliveira misses weight?
Then Makayev is the only one eligible for the fight, just like in the last fight.
So they would have a fight, and if he wins, he's a champion. But if Oliveira wins, then it's just
remains vacant.
Okay.
Okay, let me double check.
And then what would be your prediction for? Well, I'll let you check your thing first, and then we'll get your prediction on Sterling versus Dillashaw.
Yeah, Makayev has not missed weight.
All right. So Sterling versus Dillashaw. What say you on this?
Okay, Sterling versus Dillashaw. I'm gonna give Sterling the slight edge in this one.
Mm-hmm.
But Dillashaw could take it. He's got the grappling pedigree. Sterling has a grappling pedigree. They're both very good on their feet.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I'm giving Sterling the slight edge, but it wouldn't surprise me if Dillashaw came away with this one.
All right. So good to go. Good to go. All right. Well, we'll conclude then the UFC 280 preview on this. So before we get into our the last couple of topics for the night, as you and I both know, there was a legend in the Japanese pro wrestling scene who passed away, Antonio Inoki. So Matthew. So, and obviously, founder of All Nippon, what was it?
Den Nippon Pro Desu.
Right.
All Japan. No. New Japan Pro Wrestling.
Right, New Japan Pro Wrestling, which in itself, became a.
That's not Zen. Is that Zen Nippon? Does that translate to new?
No, it would have been Shin Nippon.
Shin Nippon. I was getting All Japan and New Japan mixed up.
And of course, we would see.
All Japan was formed by Giant Baba.
Right. So obviously one of two proteges of Rikidozan,
the godfather
of Japanese pro wrestling. And so I remember when we were in Japan, and when they were doing the New Year's Eve festivity stuff and
the Inoki Bombaye shows. Yep.
Yeah. Those Inoki Bombaye shows, always entertaining, to say the least. But Matthew, I think the one that we always kind of talk about was him being a pioneer in the MMA scene with one such Muhammad Ali, because of, obviously the fight at the time wasn't very well received because there was no unified rules, and both of them seemed to kind of want to change things. But in particular, Ali, didn't want to grapple with Inoki. So it was all about that. Kept changing the contract, right?
Well, at one point they had set rules, but then I think it was a few days before they secretly changed the rules to the match. And they basically, and I actually found out recently that Ali's camp basically said, to Inoki, if you disclose that, you know, there were these recent rule changes, we're pulling out completely. So just to make the match happen, and there's also talks about whether Inoki wanted to do an actual work, or if he wanted to do, which he'd done with the what was referred to as the WWF Martial Arts Championship, which were worked matches, but they were work shoot matches, is what they were.
Right. It was being marketed as a shoot match. Everyone was promoting it that way.
Yeah, originally they were gonna go for more of a work, but I think there's conflicting stories. Supposedly Ali's camp said that it was going to be a work from some stories say it was going to be a work from the beginning. Some said it was going to be a shoot from the beginning. Some say that Ali's camp was concerned that he was going to turn into a shoot, which, to be fair, Inoki again in the fight against the great Antonio started shooting but then again, that was, Antonio deciding, I'm going to start stiffing him, which was not smart, because Inoki was just like, you want to shoot on me, do you? At which point he just brutalized the guy. But yeah, so basically, as a compromise, in order to get the match done, they agreed to make it an exhibition of hybrid rules. But
right.
yeah, and I can't remember what the original rule set was, but then it was changed towards the last a few days before the fight, which restricted Inoki's grappling ability. So he just results to throwing to what he did in the fight, which was, running drop kicks and kicking from the back, from his back. So he literally was just trying to smash the living daylights out of Ali's leg.
Yeah, and I remember reading about how that was one of the, I think, that really did a number on Ali.
Yeah, he wasn't the same after that.
Yeah. That particular, and they actually, I think on the anniversary of that fight, I got to watch a broadcast of it, and if you look at it, there really wasn't. I can see why fans at the time were upset on how they were expecting, hey, it's like Antonio Inoki, who's
the grappler,
of Japan, versus Muhammad Ali, who's like the best of the best, as far as boxing is concerned. And when it kind of turned into kind of a not so great match, I think people at that time were not too happy. But it's one of those things that you kind of, a perspective. There's a lot of things that you have to look at in perspective of the match.
Well, the best way to put it is this way. It's one of those events that's developed a cult following, and it's looked at for what it is, which was a progression in terms of the MMA movement.
Yeah, not necessarily the first MMA match, but one that brought some big names, into a field that they would never have crossed.
I think Valetudo with like the Gracies had happened long before that.
Mm-hmm. But it wasn't. But the Gracies only started coming out because of you had the Pride fighting, and then you had the UFC. But I'd never heard of the Gracies until we had Pride happening. Which, I'm very sure that they were big. They're obviously big in Brazil.
Yeah, but the UFC was founded by the Gracies.
Right.
The original goal of the UFC was to prove that Gracie Jiu-Jitsu was the big thing. But parallel to that, you had Shuto start in 1984, which was pure. It was. Some people referred I remember I watched this one video of it and basically referred to it as proto MMA.
Mm-hmm.
And then Pancrase and started the same year as the UFC, and then Ring started shortly after that. So the interest in mixed rules type fights was already there, and the major ones had already happened. But before that fight between Inoki and Ali, you had the parallel Vale-Tudo fights founded by the Gracies going on in in Brazil. It was in Brazil. It was very localized, but something else interesting that I found out that was interesting, the judo practitioner who I think it was like Tsuyoshi, like Matsushi Maeda or something like that. Part of the way in which he developed the judo that he ended up teaching to the Gracies was through some early pro wrestling, back when pro wrestling was legitimate. So, early pro wrestling matches in the U.S. So that was part of how he developed the type of judo they ended up teaching them. But here's a very something else very interesting that I found out. So the original freestyle matches in I think it was the 1904 Olympics or something like that. That original freestyle was a safer version of a certain style of wrestling called catch wrestling. So, as we know, that was the type of wrestling that was being practiced in legitimate pro wrestling at the time. So, obviously, we know that Japanese MMA owes its origins to, pro wrestling, but so does American MMA, because it was judo. The type of judo was developed from matches from pro wrestling, but then on top of that, freestyle wrestling was a result of pro wrestling. And modern pro wrestling is a result of legitimate pro wrestling. So 3 different sports, and college wrestling, the folk style and collegiate style wrestling came about from. So basically, a lot of modern wrestling, modern MMA, and modern pro wrestling all owe their origins to legitimate catch pro wrestling. It's funny how that all works out.
So anyway,
but yeah, Inoki founded.
Yeah, it was funny. So it's interesting. He converted to Islam in honor Ali.
And they actually became good friends after that.
Oh yeah, they did.
Well, and then on top of that, the Inoki Bombaye song, his song was originally Ali's song. So his entrance song, do 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 do. That's that's. Oh, but it gets, it goes even deeper than that, so obviously we know that he developed strong style wrestling, which is the pro wrestling style that's practiced in New Japan, which is a little bit more nowadays. It's more of a cross of like the indie style and like the stiff more realistic style of pro wrestling. But here's an interesting thing. One of Inoki's disciples, Niki Choshu, you know him, right?
Yep.
You know what he developed, right?
You have to.
He developed a certain move that I believe it was originally called the Scorpion Lock.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
The Scorpion Deathlock under Sting, and then became known when used by the Hearts as the Sharpshooter. So it goes deeper than that. The Montreal Screwjob would have gone very different had it not been for Inoki, who trained Niki Choshu, who developed what is now known as the Sharpshooter. There's just the influence of this man when it comes to just so many different levels cannot be understated, or cannot be overstated.
Yeah, exactly.
Like his legacy branches into, his legacy pretty much is Japanese pro wrestling now, because All Japan is a shell of what it used to be.
New Japan.
No. Well, he developed New Japan. All Japan, Giant Baba's promotion is literally a shell of what it used to be. It's at one point it was argued that it was the number one promotion in Japan. New Japan is the number one promotion in Japan.
Yeah.
At one point you could argue that it was the second highest promotion in the world.
Yeah.
So it's and then again, as we stated, his legacy extends into
the WWE.
Yeah, his legacy extends into the WWE, and then his legacy extends into modern MMA. So, yeah, his legacy cannot be overstated.
Anyway, so, yep.
So rest in peace, Antonio Inoki.
So, a salute to a fighting legend. So, anyway, Matthew.
The original king of strong style. The founder of strong style.
Yep. So, let's get into One Piece. So, one of the things we saw, well, obviously, the Straw Hats have gotten separated as we're getting in chapter 1062. Straw Hats are separated after, encountering the mechanized shark, who was then taken out by a large robot, and the driver of that large robot revealed herself to be Vegapunk, which then that, kicked off a whole flurry of theory videos and what have you, right? But we're seeing now that things are not what they seem to be, because now we're seeing that it's not actually Vegapunk.
Not the original.
Not the original Vegapunk. So that kind of, I try not to read too deeply into these things, because you always know that Oda has got something up his sleeve.
Yeah, a coming possible showdown has been revealed.
Yes. Well, let's get into this first before we do that. So, this particular Vegapunk, she's called Lilith, which is apparently a personification of Vegapunk's, I guess, evil personality. Because he created these robots to kind of help him out, because he does so much, and there's 7 of them.
I thought there were 6.
Was it 6?
I thought there were 6. Well, and the question is, did something happen to the original Vegapunk, and this is how he split them, or is he controlling them from somewhere?
Right. So that is hard to tell, but
the way that it was described, I'm willing to say it's the latter. I think that the original Vegapunk probably still exists, but he's
right. So, according
controlling the 6 Vegapunk
right,
robots.
right. They're called satellites of himself. So the satellites are Lilith, who is, personification of his of evil. Shaka is supposed to be, I think his. Yeah. So you got Vegapunk. Shaka is the number one. Is Punk 1. So a throwback to Punk Hazard, obviously, and he's supposed to be a good satellite. So then if you go to, and then Lilith is supposed to be the personification of evil. And then you've got...
You know what that's a reference to, right?
Yeah, the Apocrypha in the Bible. Right?
Yeah, where Lilith was supposedly the first...
was Adam's second wife. Yeah.
No, Adam's first wife. Eve was supposed to be the second wife.
Oh.
Which I really don't... Sometimes reading into certain things that aren't there, it's just like, don't do that. Like, just read the Bible. Well, let's we're reading. Let's not get off.
We're reading too deep here. Okay,
let's not
Edison.
Get off on that tangent.
Edison, which we know who that's named after. Edison is his thinking aspect. So
his logical side, right?
Right. Kind of bringing in logic. You got Pythagoras, who's the wisdom.
Pythagoras, you mean?
What?
Pythagoras, you mean?
Yeah. Then you've got Atlas, who's an aspect of violence. And then York is greed. Now, York... Well, yeah, the only thing that the wiki has listed for trivia is the England and then the state and the city. So, nothing much out of that. So, they're kind of going around and, they're walking in his
They're
town.
They're the 4 personifications of his entire personality.
Right. So obviously they're walking around on his island now because that's where they're at, and I think Matthew kind of just what are we seeing as far as when we're walking around? There's a lot of robots, obviously.
There's also a lot of what's it called?
I know, what was it? Holograms, I think.
Holograms.
Yeah, a lot of holograms.
A lot of inventions.
And then, of course, to the surprise of Luffy and Chopper and Bonnie, there is a food machine, so they get to eat plenty of food.
Yeah.
Right. So that's pretty much and then
just chilling.
Right. They're chilling and they're trying to explain stuff, but then
it's really funny because Jinbei is pretty much the dad of the.
Jinbei is very level-headed.
Yeah, he's basically the dad of the Straw Hat Pirates now, kind of like how Robin is like the mom.
Right. Because
they're both level-headed.
Right. So here we go. As you said, we have the potentially big, and I mean big, rematch showdown coming up here, because on a ship going to the Egghead Island where Vegapunk is at, we've got CP0. And who do we have? Lucci, Stussy, and Kaku. And they're trying to take back a Seraphim, which is resembling Kuma. So, and
but that's not their primary mission.
Yeah, their primary mission is to eliminate Vegapunk.
Like, I'd really like to know what the world government thinks is going to happen.
Well,
Vegapunk is their golden goose.
Well, maybe. Well, yeah, because they're probably thinking that the Seraphim, which is what they created to replace the Shibukai.
Him specifically.
Right. Well, but those other two came up, remember, during the battle between the Blackbeard pirates and the Marines and Amazon Lily?
Oh yeah, we know the Seraphim.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm saying that the pacifistas and the Seraphim are kind of the same thing.
I think we can conclude that the pacifistas were the prototypes of the Seraphim.
Right.
The Seraphim are the culmination of the pacifista program.
Right. So you're probably right. The with the development of the Seraphim, the world government probably thinks that, now they got everything under control. They don't need Vegapunk anymore.
Which is a very foolish thing, because you're going to make him an ally of One Monkey D. Luffy.
Yep.
It becomes the enemy of my enemy is my friend.
Right. And of course, Lucci, even though he's a very cold-blooded killer and stuff, he kind of questions why the world government would want to take out.
He's logical. He knows this is not a smart decision.
Yeah, so and of course, obviously he's bringing up what happened at Leloucha, which we know, big time Im with the Rain of Fire.
I guess that's what we're calling it for
but then Stussy and Kaku are telling him not to ask questions. So that's the part about being a world government agent, right?
There's speculation that this is going to be a Luffy Lucci rematch.
Of course. That's why we're getting into that now.
I doubt Lucci has improved enough to be a challenge to the Awakened.
Well, it's going to be interesting. So that kind of makes me wonder, because there's all these. Everybody is always theorizing about who is going to be the last villain that Luffy faces off against. Now, the obvious choice is Blackbeard, but you never can be too sure, because
or is it possible we're going to see a very weird Oh no, he wouldn't defect.
Who, Lucci? No, Lucci would not defect.
He's got it. He might have been hunted, but now he's part of CP0. He's not gonna defect.
Yeah, he likes his profession too much to defect. But I'm kind of gonna go and say, hey, there might be the possibility that Lucci could be. Because Luffy's had to fight so many people. Excuse me. So many strong opponents. Obviously, Blackbeard is the top tier candidate. And then, some people are saying, well, maybe he's going to take on, Sakazuki. Oh, yeah, Shanks, Sakazuki. I think Sakazuki... The way that the story is developing more and more, if you go back to when we had Marineford, yeah, Sakazuki, or shortly after Marineford, when Fishman Island, finished. Obviously Sakazuki would have been the top choice for, everyone saying, hey, yeah, Luffy's gonna fight him at the end. But I think as the story continues to be developed, I think I'm seeing that Sakazuki being the final villain is kind of falling off the wayside more and more as I'm reading the story.
You think he might be like a final opponent for maybe
maybe for someone else? Maybe.
Like he could be like a final opponent for Dragon.
Possibly. But I'm almost wondering if maybe Dragon would be fighting, like, let's say the Gorosei. My guess, because here's another thing I'm going to guess, because Blackbeard is definitely an opponent for Luffy. But with Im in the picture, Blackbeard may not be the final opponent for Luffy.
Blackbeard might be like a final opponent in like their battle.
Right. As far as the young.
Well, and then on top of that, we don't know who we don't know who or what Luffy's ultimate dream is, because we know that he wants to be the Pirate King, but he also has something else in mind that Oda is constantly keeping secret.
It's kind of like with what the One Piece actually is. Yeah, he's deliberately keeping it hidden until such a time that we're going to actually see what it is.
Yeah, so we know for a fact that the One Piece is not the end goal. Whatever is going to happen is going to whatever Luffy's end goal is after he finds the One Piece.
Because we're probably right. You know, you would have thought at the beginning that finding the One Piece was going to end the series, but now that all these things are coming in, and I think Oda stated this: the discovery of the One Piece is going to trigger a war that goes beyond Marineford. I mean, just think about the fact of the war that they had to fight on Wano, because that in itself was such an intense fight. And like Marineford, there were casualties. We saw that because, you know, we had some major players who were named actually got killed off in the story. So the finding of the One Piece is going to be just the beginning of the final arc. You know, there's the One Piece. You know, Shueisha said that, oh, we're in the final arc. Yeah, how long is that going to be specifically, this final arc? I mean, think about the fact that Wano took place over a 5-year period, if I'm not mistaken. In fact, no. Dressrosa and I think the second half of One Piece started in 2011. And then Punk Hazard happened, I think, in like 2013 or something like that. And you got to remember that Punk Hazard is the beginning of this, you know, Wano Yonko saga. So this went over an 8 to 9 year period, this whole fight that happened. Lots to think about. You know, it's just so. One thing also, before we close out chapter 1062, is just this discovery. Because I'll tell you, when I read this, I was like, I kind of had my jaw dropped for about 5-10 seconds. Kuma is Bonnie's father.
I thought that was 163.
No, it comes up in this chapter.
Okay.
So Bonnie, and the reason why Bonnie is after Vegapunk is because he turned Kuma into, you know, the pacifista. So that's why she's obviously
the original pacifista.
Original pacifista. So she's trying to get.
She obviously doesn't know that Kuma's been retrieved by the revolutionaries.
Right. So we'll have to see.
He has some kind of autonomy back.
Right. So we'll have to see what happens.
That picture, he looked very different.
Oh yeah, because he was kind of messed up.
No. The picture of him with young Bonnie.
Yeah, seems like things happen. So if we get into chapter 1063, you know, Bonnie, Luffy, and Chopper, they're all done eating, and then Atlas has come by to kind of talk with them and stuff. And, you know, I kind of hear, you know, I'm not really going to go into details because it's all kind of developmental. So, you know, they're finding out more and more about what Vegapunk is doing and the thing with these robots that are, you know, the personifications of himself. But then they do have a pacifista who is Kuma, you know, who is supposedly Kuma but is not Kuma, is going to attack them. And Luffy's going to try and take him out, but then Bonnie stops him because she thinks that that's her father, which we know. And Luffy seems to know that this is not the real Kuma. But because she's traumatized by the fact that, she knows that her dad, and, they all look alike. So she's traumatized by the fact that, her dad's not around. So she prevents Luffy from attacking, and then supposedly there's this explosion. Which ends
because the Pacifista attacks.
Right. And that ends that particular part of the chapter. But we now shift to another narrative going on, Matthew. And as it turns out, there's another fight a-brewing. Right?
Yep. Law versus Blackbeard.
Yep, and so Blackbeard's obviously Blackbeard, he knows Law, so he's trying to get Law for his devil fruit, and they've got
unfortunately the poneglyphs.
Right. Oh yeah, he's after the red poneglyphs that Law has because he knows he's got them because of the fight with Kaido and Big Mom. And let's see here. Apparently, I don't know who developed it, but they have a feminization weapon developed by it was developed by Doc Q, and he had infected the
crew,
heart pirates. So they were all starting to turn into women, but Law was able to nullify that.
With his hockey, right?
Right, but I guess this makes sense though. Doc Q being the I don't know if you'd call it, he's not a quack. What would he be? Kind of an evil doctor.
A mad scientist.
Mad scientist. Doc Q, yeah. So he's eaten a fruit called the Shiku Shiku no Mi. And according to the wiki, it allows him to craft and spread any kind of disease. So I'm very sure that Queen would have loved to get his hands on that.
Well, you know what that means. What's his name? The
sick fruit.
Yeah. You know what that means? That means he's a natural matchup for Chopper. A Grand Line Review said this. He's a natural matchup for Chopper who wants to cure any disease. Every disease.
Well, I mean, Chopper certainly met his, obviously he didn't lose, but he certainly met his match in Queen, at least as far as the Wano arc went. Because Chopper had to really put some moves out there to make sure everyone didn't succumb to the Oni weapon. Right?
Yep.
So anyway, so that's Doc Q. So yeah, so what we're seeing now is that there's a lot of the Blackbeard pirates. We're starting to find out what their devil fruit powers are. So kind of, I'm almost kind of wondering if Doc Q already had this fruit, because remember when he was, back when they were at Jaya, and there was a person who ate one of his apples and the apple exploded. I'm wondering if he maybe inflicted the apple with a sickness.
Possible.
Yeah. So then you've got Van Alger and Jesus Burgess are there. And so their devil fruits are also revealed. Jesus Burgess this is not surprising. He ate the strong fruit, or Riki fruit, which translates to strong in Japanese. So I'm not surprised that he did that. Then you've got Van Alger ate the warp fruit, so he can kind of it's the devil fruit version of Soru, basically. You just don't have to put that much effort into it.
Yeah.
So anyway, but but we're seeing this is it's starting to kind of develop that all of them are starting to eat fruits, and then obviously they gave a fruit to Stronger, which is the very sick horse of Doc Q. I'm almost thinking that's kind of a waste what they gave him, because it was a
unicorn.
No, they gave him the horse fruit model Pegasus.
Oh yeah.
I mean, come on, man. A Pegasus, that's top tier, and they give it to a
sick horse.
So that confirms that an animal can eat the same type of fruit.
That it is.
This is the first case we're seeing this, where a horse ate a horse fruit and turned into a different type of horse. I mean, because we've got like the dog fruit, the cat fruit. What other? Oh, we've got the snake fruit. Kind of wondering what other ones that there are.
Ushimaro bison.
Yeah, you've got the Ushimaro. Yeah,
the falcon, jackal.
I think the jackal is a inu. Oh, and then you got the human, yeah. Right? And then you got the hito no mi.
Now I forgot, was Luffy is the hito model Nika?
Yes, he's the model Nika.
So what's Chopper? Is he a model something?
Chopper is just a standard hito, which is interesting. It's just a standard Onimaru. Who is Onimaru? Oh, Onimaru. That's right. Onyudo. So Onyudo is okay, yeah. And then obviously model Nika, which is the sun god thing.
Yeah, that's a mythical zone, right?
So obviously Law is caught in this big battle with Blackbeard, and now he's on his own because he doesn't have Luffy with him. So it's just his crew against a Yonko and a few of his commanders, or a few of the 10 Titanic captains.
Yeah, and I hate to say it, his crew is.
Yeah, they're screwed.
He is. He is.
Unless
it's not like Luffy, where Luffy has very competent people in his crew. His crew. This is not going to go well.
Right. Well, obviously Law is not going down without a fight.
But
that means that Law has no intention of joining Blackbeard. We know that. So we'll have to see what happens.
Well, Law had no intention of joining anybody.
Yeah.
His alliance with Luffy was
originally tended to be very short-lived, because Law was going to leave Luffy's crew to their fate. He was originally because his original goal was to get Kaido mad at Doflamingo. He had no intention of completing the fight with Doflamingo, but things happened. Law got caught up in it, and he ended up having to fight Doflamingo, and then somehow the fight wasn't over, once, because now he had a target on his back and couldn't really finish. He would not have been able to get far if he had broken off the alliance. We know that for a fact. So that is where we're at, and it just makes the Blackbeard pirates a bit more menacing, don't you think?
Oh yeah, it's well, it's funny because they started out kind of like but then it's like it's like first he went to Shibukai, and then and then he went in and he defeated Whitebeard. Then he elevated to Yonko, and then it's like now we're actually getting to see how he was able to climb that ladder.
Right. Yep, that is correct. So we're gonna see what happens here. All right, so that's gonna conclude that. I think I'm going to. So Matthew, the movie I want to talk about, we'll leave for our next episode because obviously it's not coming out until next year.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll leave that as a surprise for what we're going to talk about. So in the meantime, we'll go ahead and close out this episode. Again, we covered quite a few things and stuff, and the One Piece will be out next week. So hoping to get that in there. But Matthew, so where can our viewers find us?
Okay, for the video podcast, we can be found on YouTube, Rumble, and have we got our Odyssey set up yet?
Not yet.
Okay, well, at some point we will. Then audio, we're on Acast, Apple, Spotify, Google, Amazon Music, Samsung, and some foreign language podcasts or podcast platforms.
And Matthew,
we're on Twitter.
Yeah, we're on Twitter also. Matthew also runs MMA Freak, which is a MMA website, and so you can find him. Also, he's on Twitter himself at Matthew Salzer, and then the MMA.
I've slowly been putting out shorts for Halloween on my YouTube, which is also Matthew Salzer.
And then the MMA, you can follow MMA Freak at MMA Freakout, and their website is mma-freak.com. So Matthew, as always, thank you for your insight on all the things that we're covering. And to our audience, we will be talking to you soon.